Have you ever had one of those days, or maybe one of those years, where it feels like your whole world is just falling apart? Where one single setback feels like it could derail your entire life? Well, it turns out people have been feeling that exact same way for centuries. Today, we're going to crack open some seriously powerful, practical wisdom for all our modern troubles, and we're going to find it in a really surprising place, a 700-year-old Korean poem that has so much to teach us about how to bounce back.
But before we dive in, let me just ask you this. Just think about it for a second. What if getting fired from your dream job right at the start of your career, what if that was actually a gift? It sounds totally nuts, I know, but that's the exact idea we're going to unpack today.
All right, so let's set the scene. We're going back to the year 1309, and we're meeting a guy named Choi Hae. Now, this was a brilliant young scholar, only 22 years old, with this incredibly promising government career all laid out in front of him. And then, poof, he was dismissed. Fired. His entire future suddenly a completely blank page. And to figure it all out, he wrote a poem.
So faced with his career totally collapsing, Choi Hae didn't just, sit around feeling sorry for himself. Nope. He reached way back into ancient wisdom, and he started his poem with a reference to a famous old fable that holds the entire key to his perspective.
This is the first line exactly as he wrote it. He's using what's called hanja, which are the Sino-Korean characters that scholars used for writing back then. Each one of these beautiful symbols holds its own specific sound and its own meaning in Korean.
So let's break this down. This is the really cool part. The first character, se, is pronounced se in Korean, and it means frontier or border. The next one, ong, is ong, which means old man. Then we have sue, which is su, for although. After that, shil is shil, meaning to lose. And finally, we have ma, which is ma, for horse. Getting these individual pieces is the foundation for understanding these amazing classical Korean texts.
So when you string all those sounds together, you get Sae-ong-ji-ma shama. And when you translate the meanings, it comes out as the old man on the frontier, although he lost his horse. It's the start of a sentence, right? It's setting us up for a really famous story.
And that line brilliantly points to a massive concept in Korean culture, Sae-ong-ji-ma. It comes from this old fable about a man who loses his horse, which seems like terrible luck. But then the horse comes back with another, even better horse. Hey, good luck. But then his son falls off that new horse and breaks his leg. Awful luck. But because his leg is broken, he can't be drafted into a deadly war. Amazing luck. You see the point? You never, ever really know if something is a good thing or a bad thing in the long run.
So Choi Hae starts off by basically saying, okay, maybe getting fired isn't the total disaster it feels like. But he doesn't stop there. He goes deeper. He shifts from questioning events out in the world to questioning how we can even know what's real inside ourselves. Let's check out line 2 and see how he builds this idea.
And here we are again. 4 more characters, and each one is a little piece of a brand new story. This one's about a famous philosopher.
Okay, let's do another breakdown. The first character, Zhuang, is read as Zhuang, and it's a surname. The next one, So, is Su, and it's another word for an old man, which just shows you how different characters can sometimes have similar meanings. Then we have Ju, Jiu, which means how. Next is Ju, Ju, to know. And finally, Yu, Yu, means fish. Written in Korean, it's Zhuang-su-gyo-ji-o. And it translates to a question, how could old man Zhuang know of the fish? Now this might seem totally random, right? But just like that first line, it's actually another really powerful philosophical reference.
This line is a nod to a famous debate. The philosopher Zhuangzi, or Zhuangzi as he's known in Korean, saw some fish swimming and said, "Look at how joyful those fish are." But his friend challenged him, saying, "You're not a fish. How can you possibly know they're happy?" And Zhuangzi's comeback was just brilliant. He said, "You're not me, so how do you know that I don't know?" What Choi is saying here is, yeah, you might look at me and see a failure, but you have no idea what's going on inside my head.
So, just to recap, he's already told us that misfortune is unpredictable and that what other people think doesn't define what's true for you. Now, in the third line, Choi Hae gets to the very root of the problem, and he pulls in wisdom from one of the oldest, most profound texts in all of East Asia.
This line is a little more abstract, a little more philosophical. This is really the core of his entire argument.
Let's take a look at the hanja. We've got ui, then book is book. In is in, which means person.
Yo is ya, meaning if, and mun is mun, to ask. Now pay super close attention to those first two characters, ui, to lean on, and book, to hide. They are the secret key to this line's deeper meaning.
See, those two characters are a direct shout-out to the Tao Te Ching by Laozi. He wrote that fortune actually leans upon misfortune, and that misfortune hides within fortune. They're two sides of the exact same coin. You can't have one without the other. So this line is basically saying, if someone were to ask about this twisted up, intertwined nature of fate,
And that question sets up the final line as the answer to everything. If fate is a paradox, and if our inner state is the only thing that really matters, then what's the ultimate answer? Where do we actually find peace? Well, the final line gives us a really surprising and, honestly, a profound solution.
And here it is, the punchline. This is the conclusion to his entire meditation on failure and fortune.
Okay, let's break down our final line. The character dang means should. Then shu also means must, so it's adding emphasis. Zhi means to question. Zi, jia is a title, kind of like master. And this last character, this is the most important one. Shu read hu, which means empty or the void.
You put it all together, dang, su, jil, ja, hail, and it translates to, one must certainly ask Master Hail. The two characters ja and hail combine to make the name Ja Hail. Okay, so who is this super wise master who holds the answer to one of life's biggest riddles?
And here is the absolute genius twist. Master Zhuang isn't a real person. He's a fictional character from an old text, and his name literally translates to Master Void or Master Emptiness. The answer isn't a person at all, it's a concept. The real solution is to rise above the whole game of success and failure entirely.
So just think about that. This 22-year-old kid, stripped of his job, his title, his future, didn't write some angry poem about revenge or a sad one about despair. He wrote a 4-line guide to philosophical freedom that is just as powerful for us today as it was way back in 1309.
So let's just quickly retrace this path to freedom that he laid out for us. First, you reframe misfortune. Realize it's not the end of the world, because things are always changing. That's Sae-ong-ji-ma. Second, you value your own inner peace over what anybody else thinks. That's the lesson of the fish. Third, you have to understand that good and bad luck are totally tangled up together. That's Laozi. And the final, liberating step, you find true peace by asking Master Void, by letting go of your need for either good or bad outcomes.
So the next time you face a big setback, you lose a job, you get rejected, you fail at something important, you have a choice. You can see it as a complete disaster, or you can see it like Choi Hae did, as a Jiaho moment, an opportunity not just to find some silver lining, but to question the entire game you were playing in the first place.